Alright, everybody, this is my last video, I swear. That's it, that's all I got right there. And, that's fine. But, I think I want to make a video on the underground. I do. Now, like, if you want to talk about the underground, then you have to talk about you have to talk about history, and you have to talk about the present, right? So, one of the first things to be said about the underground would be the Pacific War between America and Japan. And America eventually brought along some fucking flamethrowers. And those flamethrowers would suck the air out of all these underground tunnels. And these people would just die from lack of air. They would die from lack of air. So, like, these underground places had proved formidable before they encountered the flamethrowers. Right? But these flamethrowers, they would just suck the air out, they suck the oxygen out of people's lungs, and they would just die. So, like, first of all, the way to get around this, and I would love to make a book on this, and I think I have a style. I've talked about it before, but I don't know. I'm just I'm just at the end of my beer here. That's it. I'm poor. I don't have any money to buy anymore if I want, but I have to work tomorrow, so that's it. But I mean, like, to talk about living underground is to talk about the first step into space, right? Because the goal of living underground would be to live underground completely independent from the above ground earth. Like, you're not dependent on, you're totally independent underground. You can produce your own oxygen. You can produce your own water, right? And you might need resources and shit like that. But there's also recycling, obviously. And there's abundance everywhere. But if you allow it, rather than scarcity creating abundance. Anyways. No, so that's a big problem though. But it's not. Because like to produce your own air is a mythical fairy tale within the science world. Like, is it possible for us to produce our own air? Like, that would be a gargantuan task which we might not be able to be up to on a singular family level. You might need a community to produce air, but you can't be no gung-ho independent person if there's no oxygen to breathe on the planet. Maybe, I don't know. Like, how do we produce our own air? Right, but there's a go-between, right? And I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about it. And the go-between is this. You have a tank. You have two tanks. You have two tanks. Both tanks are filled with air. And this air comes from above and it's filtered, just in case there's any radiation above the planet, or there's any toxic biochemicals, or there's any toxic chemicals. You have a filtration system, and the filtration system fills these air tanks up, and the people underground are breathing off of these air tanks, and these air tanks give them X amount of days. Where they might have a week, they might have 4 days, they might have a month of air, and they're not for an entire month. They're not dependent on the above ground, right? So somebody could be up there and in charge and throwing flamethrowers down the vents and the tubes, and we don't need the vents and the tubes for X amount of days. But mm, it's like, but that's our past, and we could talk more about that in depth. But what is our present? Our present is that in modern warfare, cities are destroyed. Like all above surfaces are destroyed, and only, only, um, I mean that's why people go to bomb shelters, right? But we have this weapon out there, and it's a foam weapon. And this foam weapon attacks tunnels, right? And it fills up these tunnels and it suffocates everybody. Um, but that can easily be bypassed. Like, I've been thinking a lot about it because, like, if you're underground living, like, think about that. You're underground living and you're living in these pods of some build or another, right? And you're walking from one pod to another. And of course, you would want each pod to be as air independent as possible. But if you're walking into another pod and there's violence going on within the society, then you could be walking into a trap where you're gonna die. You know, so it's like there would be this tradition if you're living underground, the tradition of the survivors, right? There would be a tradition that if you're walking into another pod, you got to check that pod out. You gotta see on the other side. You gotta make sure that there's oxygen, because like if you open that door up and you're all, and obviously, like underground people, if they're in public, they probably have to wear air masks because the oxygen can be just sucked away so quickly at any time. And only when they're in private could they take those oxygen masks off if they trust that private sphere. Um, because one idiot could just kill everybody. And sometimes you're that idiot, through no fault of your own. Sometimes maybe through a fault. I don't know. But what we do know is that underground bunker bombs can only penetrate so far. In complexes that are just not advisable to create, right? So you want to go farther down. But like what we do know is that like underground is the new castle. Like that foam, those foam weapons could be easily bypassed by compartmentalizing the whole of the underground structure. And each compartment is a sacred unit. Ooh. Damn. Each compartment is a sacred unit. And when you pass from one compartment to the next, you better first of all check it with your eyesight and your smell. And then you check it with robots, with drones, both flying and driving. And then you check it with a human. Like, you better check that you're not walking into a trap. So if you, like, oh, what? You flood one compartment with that foam, but there's a million compartments that you cannot flood because there's all these breaking points based upon air, and all that shit. No, like that's the new castle, and that's our new reality, because bombs destroy everything on the surface, and like I'm on the surface right now and I could easily be destroyed. But if I were underground, then especially I didn't like fear these bunker bombs, because I built farther than them and smarter. Then no, underground is, I think, our new reality, and that's the first steps to space, right? Because if we could live underground, completely independent of Earth, then we can live off this planet. Or that no, that's not true because we still have these gravity problems. But we still have, there's probably the resonance of the moon with the Earth. Like we're probably like there's this Stargate episode where there was these creatures and like they fucked up the resonance of the planet. But like if we leave the resonance of the moon and the Earth, like our bodies might be like, what the fuck? We need the resonance of the moon and the Earth. So we might, like we talk about geocentric, and it's like the only way we might be able to propagate ourselves in space is to be geocentric and to create a new Earth everywhere, right? Because Mars doesn't have the gravity to support life, but if you start throwing rocks into it and creating a bigger gravity, and you'd have to create a gravity similar to Earth, like we could create planets. Anyways. And like we can't live on Mars, but we could create a planet there. And there's all these rocks in the I think 3 different meteor rings we have in our solar system. We talk about the 9 planets, but there's like 3 different meteor rings where there's just meteors just like everywhere. But start throwing, anyways. I'll shut up. Underground living. No, that's where it's at. No, under fucking ground. Like we already can grow our own food indoors, right? The only thing that stops us is the monopoly of the electrical companies. But we could easily fucking grow our own food indoors, and it could be healthy. Because we know the nutrients, and we know like there's all these biochemical farmers out there that would know how to get it done, there's all these beautiful scientists that could, we could grow our own fish and create food for our own fish underground. We could grow our own chickens and rabbits and cows and goats, and we can grow food for them. All underground. And like I recently heard this guy, he was like, yeah, that's fine for a family farm, but that's not practical for an industrial farm. So I'm not giving any economic or political polemics right now. Not at all. I'm just saying that practically speaking, underground is Newcastle, right? And if you're fucking Castilian, then you gotta fucking get under fucking ground, and you gotta do it right, because there's all these mythbusters out there, and they want to bring your capacity down, but like I think our capacity is just beyond this planet. Yeah, no, I think so. But the first steps to being beyond this planet is fucking underground. That's where everything's going. Like, I'm not preaching anything. I'm just saying, no. Like, if someone's fucking throwing missiles at you and you can't stop those missiles, then get in a fucking underground bunker, right? That's just fucking like underground is where we are going right now, because nuclear weapons may or may not be real, but 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever 1,000-pound dynamite bomb is real. Like there's a lot of surface destruction that we can deliver nowadays thanks to science. But underground, that's survival. No, that's total survival.